Let's talk about edit and mix groups. Edit and mix groups are a fantastic way inside of Pro Tools to be able to maneuver both in edit and the mix window. And I'm actually going to be just focusing on a section of the song Goodbye Tonight by Theory of Flight. And I'm going to show off some of those mix edit groups and how they're used. So off to the left over here, if we kind of slide this over, you can read what kind of groups we have already. And these are both mix and edit groups. We can modify and change these. We can make adjustments to these. But we have kit. I don't know why I have bass with 3 S's. It just must be that good. Main guitars, lead guitar, slide guitar, hook melody guitar, high edge. These are violin pulses, viola pulses, Vince's guitar bridge delivery or delay guitar, all strings, violin melody, violin pulse B, and guitar. So there's a bunch of additional ones here. And we can activate or deactivate these. And on the track, if we actually go to the mix window, you can see these in action. And let me just open up this part of the group there. If we look here right in the middle of each track, you see this little color. And we can actually change some aspects about the way the color is being used on screen and on the session. But if you look at that color there, you'll notice it coincides with the colors that are over here in these groups. Now, technically, with the color palette, we can go through and change, each one of these colors so that, if we go window and color palette, we could actually modify those colors on every track by track. So they don't actually have to match the group. But we can also, if we go to Pro Tools and Preferences, in the first tab, we have color coding options. And color coding options could default to groups or track types or just have none at all. And so depending on how you decide to modify that there, you can actually have those change. So if, let's just say we decided we wanted our clips to be in groups as well. And so if we flip back over to the edit window, what we should see is all of the clips that are grouped together are now that particular color, the color of that group. And I think the reason why there could be, I'm trying to see there, sometimes there are multiple groups in overall, like depending on what is being highlighted, it might be involved in several different instances of a group. And so that can often also be the reason why some of the things that you see there are changed. Although I don't see much in way of anything that's red, so it looks like the drums just need to be switched back to their original group color. There we go. And it was highlighted already, so you could see it. So that's really what this should look like. But with those groups, now what we get from that is we get the ability to move faders up and down in those groups. We get the ability to solo those groups or mute those groups altogether. We have a lot of features that we're able to engage in and to utilize. And then if we want to temporarily bypass control of those groups, all we have to do is hold control on our keyboard. So let's just say I wanted to move, like this is all moving in a group, great, but I just need to turn just this one fader up. I hold control and I can grab it and slide it and adjust it. And then as soon as I let it go and I grab it again, now it's back in the group, So that gives me some great ability to do some independent control and then still have overall control when I let that go. Additionally, down in the groups pane over here, there is an all group if you ever needed to do anything to all tracks, which is nice. But if we go over here, to establish a new group, we can just highlight the nameplates of any new group. Let's say we wanted to do these 3 and hold Command and the letter G. As long as they're highlighted, it's going to make a new group, and then we can title it whatever we want. So let's just say this is, new group. And you could see who's already added into that new group. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky. Notice there's an option to make it just an edit group, just a mixed group, or a mixed edit group. It's so much easier with it being both. But if you ever needed to just separate it, you could do that. And then there's a thing that says follow globals Well, the globals essentially are like an easy way to just have it assigned to do the things that every other track is doing in terms of the grouping. And so you could say, all right, groups control panning, they control the send levels for all of these. If you hold Option, it'll activate them all. If you're holding Option while you do this, you can activate them all. Control inserts and bypasses for control. You put an insert in, you could have controls, which means the plugins that you're using. And in the sends, it's very important to know whether or not you do or don't need these for sends. The last things at the bottom is record enable, solo. We usually need object controls, input monitoring and automation. Those are all really great things to have in global. But let's say we just decided, no, we don't want it to follow global. If we deselect it, then all we have to do is go to the attributes tab, and then we're just going to activate just the things we want activated for that particular group. In this instance, we're just going to say follow globals, and that's why the attributes are grayed out. And as long as on our track listing we have everybody that we need, great, we can hit OK. It'll build that group. But if we needed to modify that group, if we go click in this menu, we could go and modify the group and decide or elect who's in that group. We need to click the list at the ID and go, all right, we're going to scroll down to our new group and go, you know what? We don't want the snare in our new group. We wanted Tom 1 in our new group. And there we go. And boom. Okay. And now we have that modification. Additionally, if you highlight a group or click over a group and then hit control click or right click, if you didn't want that group, you could just delete it. You could also duplicate it. And you can select just the tracks in that group, which is actually what it just did. But I'm going to delete it. And yes, it's not undoable, but we want to delete it. Great. So now we have essentially all of those tracks, all the other tracks pulled out. So we just hold Option and click that back in the tracks list so we can get them all back. Now let's go back to the whole reason we're talking about this in the first place. And that is because really it's useful for both editing and mixing. So I'm going to play this track and I'm going to show you the useful elements about the mixing, and then I'll go back and show you some useful elements about the editing. And I mean, they really coincide, but let's just take a quick listen to this track and we can make some modifications. You'll see which groups are moving together. All right, let's take a stop here. So as we cross over, we just went through this bridge, but as we cross over into this final chorus, if we scroll down, this is just where the chorus is. I'm going to zoom in, but if we scroll down, we start to see at the very bottom stacks and stacks of vocal elements coming in. And that's where we left off. So like all of what we just saw, what we just left off is all these. They look grayed out, but they're actually not deactivated. It's just that when I switched those preferences in color coding, it was like, oh, these vocals don't belong to a group. And that's why they're not colored. And so we can easily fix that, one, by putting them in a group. And we actually should group them in a kind of a organized fashion. So if we just kind of look at, who's doing what, and who's supposed to be doing what. Let's just solo a couple of these, just kind of figure out who's who, and then we'll build our groups based upon what we see. If this is our goodbye tonight, don't wanna look you in the center of the eye to light. Okay, so that's the lead. I'm just going to hit Command G. That's the lead vocal. So that's lead vox. Great. That'll be a group. Oops, I didn't put this one in. So hold on. Let me go modify that because I don't know why. I'm not sure why that happened exactly. But let me just take a look. Going back to lead vox, we should have also had something called B hook double. So I see B hook. Sorry, there were a lot of vocals in this song, and some of which we didn't. We do use at certain times, and some which there we go. So B hook double. If I got that right, we should see it go. Okay, great, blue. So that's that. We can balance those out. Notice there's one of them. Notice if you notice one of them's a double. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold control and blend it in a little better. And that way I can control those in that way. And then if I go back over, now I want to see what's going on with these guys over here. If they're doing something together, I'm going to group them. And again, we're going to talk about why that becomes important. Let's see. Okay, so those are all doing a lot of the same work. And so Command G, great. Now what we're going to do is that is, those essentially are background. So we could just call that BGV1. And then that whole group's stuck together, put together. There's a reason we're going to want that. And we don't have to use it right away, but there will be a reason why we're going to want that soon. Because then you're going to start to see it kind of checkerboard over here. It kind of moves, and there's a bunch of activity going on over here between these vocals. So let's see what's going on with this group right here. Oh, strange, but doable. So that's just supposed to represent, I think, the high group. So that's fine. Let's just make that, because there's a gap, I see two tracks right here. I'm going to call this BGV3. I'm assuming these groups right here go together. Let's go solo these. Okay, this group is actually, these are